Start class Friday. Hey, class. Who will give them all this now?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the e-learning podcast. I'm Adelaide Kukwa-Godwo, a second-year business administration student.
I'm Tutor Franklin Wolanyo, a level 400 student reading international business. I'm the current SRCPR.
I'm Leroy Odro, a fourth-year student reading human resource management and a former SRCPRO.
I'm Felicia Ofebia Kisiedu, a final year student reading logistics and supply chain management.
We are your hosts for today's exciting conversation.
In this episode, we will delve into the fascinating world of generative AI and explore how these transformative tools, along with social media platforms like WhatsApp, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, are reshaping the landscape of e-learning.
Yes, we will discuss the prospects and challenges leveraging the tools and platforms, not just for today's learning, but also for the future and the society.
And we are thrilled to have with us Dr. Achana Berchum, who will guide us through this intriguing subject. Dr. Achana Berchum is a lecturer at the Department of Physics and an enthusiast of AI who spends considerable time exploring how these tools can benefit students in their learning journey.
So sit back, get comfortable, and join us as we explore leveraging generative AI tools and social media for e-learning, prospects, challenges.
But as has already been said, I am a lecturer at the Department of Physics. I'm a solid state physicist to be precise, and my research focus on ferroelectric materials. Also, I look at thin films with photovoltaic applications. I'm also looking at functional materials, focusing on their phase transitions and how to improve their phase transitions. And as has been said, I love AI technologies, and I've been looking into how generative AIs are influencing the way students are learning. I'm also, on the side, I also write scripts for TV shows such as Ketia vs. Makola. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Brilliant, Doc. So, Doc, for our dear listeners, could you explain what AI is, what generative AI is, and tell us the differences between various types of AIs?
Okay. So, you asked me 3 questions. You want to know about what AI technologies are. AI technologies are mainly technologies that software or machines, there are types of software or machines that are capable of mimicking human intelligence. And when we say mimicking human intelligence, we are talking about tasks that enable them to learn from experience and be able to respond to things that they have learned. So there's the AI has to be trained on some data and give responses based on the data that it has been trained on. So they can recognize patterns, understand language. They can also make decisions based on the data that they've been trained on. So that's what AI does broadly. But for generative AIs, you're talking about AIs that can learn to generate content based on what they've been trained on. Now, most AI technologies give you specific answers when you query them, and those answers tend to be repetitive. But what generative AIs will do will be to give you broader answers or different answers each time you query them for some information. So, for example, at the chatbots like ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT the same question 10 times, and each time it gives you a different response. Now, we have different kinds of generative AIs. We have those that are text-based. We have those that can generate images. Some can generate music, voices, videos, and text as well, as we have already said. Some can even create virtual reality environments that are used in games. Now, the main differences between generative AIs and other types of AIs are that, as I've already said, that the AI systems what they will do will be to analyze information and give you a single type of output. So you have a picture, for example, a series of pictures, for example, and then the AI can analyze the pictures and give you information from those pictures. What a generative AI will do will be to give you a brand new image based on a query that you give it. So, and each time you give it a query, it will generate some new, output for you. Yeah. So that's that's the difference between the AIs and generative AIs as well.
Okay, Doc. So today, when you look at our environment and students, students are using social media a lot. So can you give us a brief overview of how these social media platforms are being harnessed for e-learning?
So, the thing with e-learning and social media is that, these social media platforms are ubiquitous. They are everywhere. Everybody has access to them. And so the way that it's being used is that people are creating content all the time. And when people are creating content, the idea is that you want to access this content and be able to engage with the content. So what's happening is that you have, especially at the undergraduate level, you have lots and lots of people who are accessing this information, because when you're studying at the undergraduate level, the courses you're studying at the undergraduate level are courses that are universal. Everybody who is studying, for example, who is studying business administration, there are some universal courses that you will study around the world. So what's going to happen is that then students are engaging in these platforms to discover new things all the time. Now, what's going on also is that a lot of the content that's out there is getting students, after students are done with class, they don't really understand something they studied in class. They get onto these platforms, they access them, they learn. The other thing is that you also have these community platforms like WhatsApp and Telegram, where students can be in a classroom without having to be in a physical classroom. They can engage in talking to each other on these platforms. So they don't have to be in a physical classroom. They can be in different locations and still be able to talk to each other. So that's how we are leveraging these social media platforms for learning. That's how students are leveraging around the world these social media platforms for learning.
Okay, so you may have talked about it, but let me also ask again. What are the prospects of these social media platforms for us as students?
So prospects, that's a very good question. Prospects are that, these social media platforms, they democratize learning. When we say democratize learning, what we mean by that is students are able to learn at their own pace, for example. Now, you have a video on YouTube, for example, and then the video is playing, and then something that you didn't understand, you can pause it, rewind, go back, and then watch it again. You are tired and you want to sleep, you are feeling sleepy, you can pause the video, go to sleep, wake up, and continue. That's a good way in which students are using media platforms. So it allows them to personalize their learning. Another thing is and I mentioned this collaborative learning where you have WhatsApp and Telegram, allowing for students to have conversations about what they are learning, share what they are learning, and improve upon it. Then you have lifelong learning, because once the video is there, you can come back and refer to it anytime you need the information. So let's say, for example, you studied Python in school, and then you are in the working world and you need to apply some kind of programming that you need for work. You can go back to these videos, watch them, and reacquire the knowledge and use it for your learning. And finally, you have parental engagement, which is something that's very important, because especially for minors who are engaging on these social media platforms, there's a way in which parents can engage with the learning and control how much access their children have to these platforms, and make sure that they are safe with their learning. 1, 2, can monitor the progress of the learning of their wards. And that's also something that these media platforms provide, that's outside of what the brick and mortar walls of the regular learning classrooms provides.
Okay. So, Doc, how does the generative AI tools, how can it be integrated with media platforms and enhance our learning experiences? And then can you give us examples of this integration where the generative AI tools can be merged with the media platforms?
So this is being done on several levels. So for example, some video platforms like YouTube have transcription technologies that are harnessing AI. They harness AI technologies to transcribe the videos. Now, if you have a transcript of a video that you have just studied, you can upload it into a generative AI like ChatGPT. And then as you're watching the video, you can query the video with questions, targeted questions to ChatGPT. And that will allow you to have another level of learning, which is called interactive engagement education, because now you are interacting with the video, but using a chatbot as a tool to query the video, and then the chatbot can generate responses based on the content of the video to you, so giving you more information. Because of course, when you have a video, you can't ask it questions, but when you have a chatbot, you can use a chatbot as a tool to be able to respond to things that you're not getting quite clearly. The other way that people are using it is also with the text. So if, for example, you've enrolled in an online course and you have some course material, you can upload them to chatbots such as Bard, for example, Google's Bard. And Google's Bard will, again, you can query Google's Bard with your questions and get responses and feedback on things that you are learning. And so that augments the learning experience of students, because you are no longer restricted to just learning and not having anyone to have conversations with. You now can engage with the learning material in a way that is tailored to you and tailored to the way you understand things.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so before I move on, this podcast is live from KNUST Obuasi campus. So Doc, from your perspective, what are some of the most effective ways students are currently using social media platforms for educational purposes?
Well, I'd like to ask you, have you been using any of these social media platforms? And what have you been doing?
Yes, Doc. I have been using some of these social media platforms.
Can you be more specific? What is some?
I've used YouTube.
Okay.
Yes.
How did you use YouTube? What were you using it for?
Okay, so aside schoolwork, I take online classes as well, and YouTube has helped me, especially broadening my knowledge based on what I gain from the online classes I have. Because it's online, I can't have access to the tutors that are teaching me online. So through YouTube, I'm able to gain better understanding of what I'm studying. And aside that too, I've also used Twitter, and through that, I'm able to also gain more information and knowledge about what I'm studying.
So just a quick, the Twitter, you'll be able to focus on current affairs. Those of us in the political field as well, you'll be able to follow Twitter to get to know current affairs, what's happening, what's trending in Ghana, what's trending in the world currently. That's what one way Twitter can help us well.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's interesting. And do any of you have anything else you want to add?
With YouTube as well. I mean, when COVID broke, when we're all in the house, I had the chance to learn graphic design. I had the chance to learn graphic design during the COVID break, and it was solely on YouTube. So I think YouTube has actually been of help to me, yeah.
Yeah, the Indian guys. Yeah, they really help a lot. Those guys are great guys.
So, you know, so yeah, these are some of the things. These are some of the things that, I mean, you have answered. I mean, how it's being harnessed. The thing is that what students are very quickly discovering is that they can also own access to their learning. They don't have to wait to be in the classroom to learn. You know what you have to know, and then you make an effort to find it because there are a plethora of tools that are available on the internet that give you access and that allow you to be able to move outside of the classroom and gain information from experts around the world, and it also broadens your perspective on what you're learning because you're no longer learning targeted only within what is provided from your professors here in Ghana, but professors from many places around the world.
Coin is in two folds. While we've looked at the positive side, let's look at it from this side. What are some of the challenges students may encounter when using these social media platforms, and how do you think we can overcome them?
There are a few challenges. One of the challenges is that we don't have a lot of Ghanaian content on these media platforms, like Ghanaian academics who are putting content out. But what's happening is that this landscape is changing because, for example, KNUST's e-learning is pushing a very intentional agenda to ensure that we have Ghanaian content that's available. And so, for example, this podcast is an example of that. But the challenge it has put out there is that if students are learning or engaging in learning, they are learning with experiences that are not Ghanaian because the professors who are non-Ghanaian who are teaching them are teaching them within their sociocultural perspective, and that always creates limitations for learning. There's a lot of scientific evidence for that when you better teach people within the context that they know, they have better understanding of what it is they are learning. Another challenge is to do with misinformation because students are not always savvy enough to know who an expert is and who an expert isn't. And so they can very easily be misinformed by someone purporting to be an expert just because of the way the person may be presenting their knowledge. Another challenge also is cyberbullying. When students are existing in these social media spaces, they become easy targets for cyberbullies. And that can also diminish the learning experience because if you are on a social media platform and you're getting cyberbullied all the time, this generates certain trauma experiences that make it difficult for you to be able to engage in learning. And there's a way in which if you were in a brick and mortar classroom, then the learning instructor or teacher would be able to guide the learning experience to minimize the bullying that would be occurring. So these are some of the pitfalls. So, like I said, so with the content, like I said, we are in the process of generating these contents, and KNUST is leading. KNUST, as the best university in the world for SDG Goal 4, is leading the charge through the e-learning team, with Professor Santi leading us. It's an amazing thing that he's doing, and I'm also using this as an avenue to say that more people should get involved in what he's doing. The second thing is how we control cyberbullying. This is more to do with it has more to do with national policy and policy within the various social media tools and companies. So what they are trying to do, and these are conversations that are ongoing. Social media companies are learning better how to create tools um, within their systems to be able to better handle cyberbullying. When it comes to information, false information as well, there has to be a concerted effort. This is where the traditional teaching comes into play, because if you have professors who are guiding the learning experience and helping students to discover learning experience, it helps. Social media tools are also, social media companies are also becoming better at tagging misinformation, um, at tagging misinformation on their platforms. So then you get some kind of tag on something that is supposed to be is not supposed to be factual. But again, these are things that are work in progress. So for students as well, if you find information around something you are learning, some professor online, you think that it's good information, you should share with your lecturers, with your teachers, and they will also be able to help enhance the learning experience, because of course they will look at it and give you a sense of whether it is good material for you to use or it is material that you should be careful about. So these are ways in which we can mitigate some of these challenges.
Thank you, Doc. I mean,
Thank you too.
it's been insightful so far. So you see, there are some students who do not have prior knowledge in this AI tools and other social media, handles or social media platforms. So how can these students use these AI tools alongside some of the social media, platforms available to them? So how can they, use it alongside it, which would help in e-learning as well?
Okay, so maybe I can throw this question back to you, Walanyo. What do you think? Have you used any generative AI tools alongside these social media tools? Have you used them together before?
Yeah. I am really involved in. Actually, have an account with ChatGPT, and then most of my academic questions go there. Later, I'll have a specific question about using it currently as a student. But I use it a lot when I need to make certain reviews. One quickest one I have with me is the Snap AI.
Okay.
Wherever I am. So when I'm in class and then the lecturer asks a question, then I just quickly hit it up.
So
on the Snap AI.
Yeah.
Then I get the answer.
Yeah. So from what he's saying, you realize that for anyone who is not using it, you just wake up one day and start using it. I mean, that's the thing. Take a step. They say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. So my advice would be that you take a step, start to use it, figure it out, ask questions, ask it questions on how to, ask the generative AI questions on how to use it better. If you're not using social media tools for learning, figure it out, get online, do searches, ask your colleagues, and that's how learning is done. That's how learning is done anywhere in the world. We learn by experience. We learn by engaging, interacting, and so that's what you should be doing. Engage, interact, experience, and that's how you get your foot in the door. So that's what I'll ask people to do. Begin, start, try. There's nothing too hard about it. It's only a matter of getting onto it and seeing what you can make of it.
So, since you're a lecturer, I would like to pose this question to you.
Okay.
So, you are encouraging students to use this generative AI tools.
Yes.
So imagine you give an assignment to your class or students in your class for them to go and research about something. And these students, since AI isn't, illegal, and you're encouraging us to use, so they go online, use ChatGPT, do all the work, bring it to you. Since it is not illegal and they've been able to submit the assignment to you, what's your thoughts on that?
So, an important thing about academic work is that if you're given an assignment, the idea is that you are using your intellect or intelligence to do the assignment. So, if you are using a generative AI as a tool to do your assignment, you can use it on two levels. You can use it as an assistive tool or as a replacement tool. Now, if you're using it as an assistive tool, what this means is that you are using it to assist you in the work. So you don't understand some portions of the work and then you're asking the generative AI questions. You watch the video and then you've uploaded the video into the generative AI so that it explains some of the concepts to you. or you have a PDF, your notes, and you put into a generative AI, and then you use it to explain some of the concepts to you so that you can do the work yourself. Now, if you use it as a replacement tool where it's doing all the work for you, then there's clear evidence that you didn't do the work at all. If you didn't do the work at all and you submit the work as if you did it, that becomes a problem. And that's a problem because then that's plagiarism, because the author of the work is ChatGPT and not you as the student. And so that's where the interplay has to be. Now, what's happening is that many educational institutions around the world are trying to figure out how to manage student learning with these generative AIs, because of course, especially when ChatGPT was released last year, in November last year, that was the big challenge that educators were concerned about. But a lot of educators are also reinventing the way they are engaging student learning using these tools, because we realize that this is the future of the world. Like, everybody is using it, and in fact, these tools are only going to get better and more sophisticated. So the idea is, how do you better arm students to be able to engage it as an assistive tool and not a replacement tool? And so what has happened is that educators are reinventing their questions, making the questions more challenging so that ChatGPT or any of these generative AI text chatbots are unable to provide complete answers. For us in Ghana, we are much luckier because questions that exist within the Ghanaian context are very difficult for these generative AIs to respond to. So when educators create questions like that, then it becomes harder for students to do this. But what I'll say at the end of the day is that as a student, it's also very important for you to understand that you need to position your learning such that you cannot be replaced by a chatbot. If you are using a chatbot to do your assignments, then you are positioning yourself such that you are replaceable by a chatbot. And apart from the fact that it's illegal, it's academic fraud, let me put it that way. You will exist in a future where you have no knowledge, and all the work you can do, a chatbot can do, which means that then you become unemployable. And that becomes a problem for you, because it's one of the real challenges of these AI tools, generative AI tools, and all other AI tools. The fact is that they are going to be replacing a huge number of jobs. Some estimates put it at 14 million jobs by 2027 alone. Okay? 2027 alone, 14 million jobs are going to be lost by generative AI tools. So if you are not learning how to exist with them, and rather you are using them to replace the work that you should be doing as a student, learning you're supposed to be doing, the writing you're supposed to be doing, that will be a problem. The other thing also is that generative AIs, they write, depending on which generative AI tool you are using, depending on which model you are using, there's a style in which they write. And if you don't also learn to write, you will lose the skill of writing. And that will be a real loss, because every one of us has a way of writing that makes us special, that makes us unique. And if all you are using is using a chatbot to create your content, then you are causing the world to miss out on a gem, because your writing is beautiful if you train yourself hard enough. So these are things that students should be aware of. Don't wholly rely on them. Use them as an assistive tool. Do not let it do the hard work that you are supposed to be doing. Rather, you should be engaging in the learning and using it to support your writing.
The students have the challenge with. The point is that you need the assignment with the answers. And then the students are supposed to learn from the answers of the assignment. But here is the case: when we input it in, we get the answers, we read through them, realize that these are the right answers. So you've developed that these are the right answers you need. After reading that, I get to get the knowledge. At the latter point becomes supports the student's argument, because they get the knowledge at the end of the point.
But the point is not getting the knowledge. The point is, for an assignment, the point is, whose work is it? If it's not your work, then it's plagiarism, it's academic fraud. And that is the point from the educational point of view. Because you see, the fact that you've read something doesn't mean that you have had the knowledge. And all students know this, because you can read your slides and go to the exam and there'll be one question and you can't answer it. And that's because you haven't properly assimilated the knowledge. You have not owned the knowledge. And ChatGPT makes it even easier for students to skirt around this, because it's worse than doing copy and paste, because here you can target with a prompt exactly what you think you need. Now, one of the limitations, and I didn't mention, of generative AIs is that they are not, the current state they are not always truthful. So if you are not an expert on the subject matter and you use it to generate something, it's going to generate false content for you. And that is a big problem, because then any academic who is reading your work, one, will be able to detect that you didn't write this, you wrote it with a chatbot. Two, there are all kinds of tools available for us as academics to be able to tell whether you as a student wrote it or not. The easiest is to have a conversation with you. And any lecturer can ask you any basic question, and if you didn't do the work of putting the contents together, you will be lost, completely lost. The other thing is that you have companies like Turnitin that are really upping their game to ensure that they can detect plagiarism that's been done by these chatbots. So again, as students, your concern should be that you need to arm yourselves, because the world is rapidly changing with the onset of these AI tools. And any student who is using them as a replacement tool is replacing themselves for the world of work in the future. And so you need to be very much aware of this. If you are not doing the hard work yourself and you are only teaching yourself to use an AI tool, you are completely replaceable. Anybody can do that work, and these tools are going to get better. So you need to position whatever program it is that you are reading, you need to position yourself such that you are an expert in the subject matter, you are an expert in producing responses to queries, you are an expert in creating new knowledge from the knowledge you have received. And that can only be done when you are an expert in the subject matter. Then that is where the AI tools become an assistive tool, because they technically cannot create new knowledge. For now, they are locked down by just producing answers. But you as a human being can think up a new business plan, for example, come up with a new business idea, for example. And that's where we stand at an advantage. Now, if throughout your learning experience, all you are teaching yourself is how to skirt by using ChatGPT, you will undermine yourself in the future. And as I'm saying, there are just too many systems in place within the universities for you to successfully skirt through. At some point, there will be an evidence that your learning is incomplete because you've only used the generative AIs as a replacement tool to do assignments. And even if, on the very rare case, you manage to skirt through with a degree, you end up in a working world where you'll be completely redundant, because the tools that are there are far better at doing the job that you are supposed to do. And you won't be able to create new jobs for yourself through entrepreneurship, because all you know how to do is to use ChatGPT. And you'll be competing with people who have assimilated the knowledge. They are subject matter experts, and they can use ChatGPT as well. And so how will you compete in a working world like that? So that's why it's important that students do the hard work now, so that when they are out there in the working world, they are subject matter experts who have a powerful assistive generative AI tool to become champions in the working world for the future.
Students who use the generative AI as assistants to reference them during their presentations?
So for now, there aren't any hard and fast policies about using generative AIs amongst educational institutions in Ghana. What I will recommend is that there has to be conversations between the lecturers and students about using generative AIs. And students who are learning to use them should have honest conversations with their lecturers, and lecturers who are using them should also have conversations with their students, engage in conversations, so that you can set boundaries around how much of the generative AI should be used. But what is happening in KNUS is that a lot of lecturers are certainly aware of these generative AIs and are adapting their questions in a manner that make it impossible for students to rely solely on the generative AIs to answer questions. And I certainly, for one, am doing it, and I know a number of lecturers who are doing it. So, for example, in my programming classes that I teach, I ensure that students are unable to solely rely on ChatGPT to answer programming questions. You can use it as an assistive tool, but if you try to use it to write all the code, it certainly is going to fail. As I said, one of the limitations of a lot of the generative AI tools, chatbots that are available, is that there's not a lot of data on Ghana available. So when you ask, for example, I teach physics. So if, for example, I ask students to talk about the thermodynamic processes of making palm wine, there's no way ChatGPT is going to be able to do that. And that's where as educators, we can help students. So then they can use it to help with the ideation process, but they can't use it to solve all the problems. Finally, when it comes to solving mathematics, currently the generative AIs are not the best. What they will do will probably break down the problem for you so that you can solve it better. And so that, again, helps with student learning, because the students sometimes struggle to figure out how to break down the problem, but it won't solve the problem for you. So students still have to do the hard work to solve the problem. So what I'll say is that use it as a tool, an assistive tool to improve your learning, but don't use it as a tool that completely replaces your learning.
Regarding all that you have said about how students use the chat GPT, the generative AIs, and how the world is going now, what do you think the impact of these AI or generative AI tools will be in the near future on our work and then our education?
So I think I've said a few things about the work, that lots of jobs are going to be replaced. And so we have to begin to think about how we are going to replace, how we are going to be relevant in the working world of the future. And the way we can be relevant is that we need to be people who are creating new knowledge all the time. And that's the only way we can beat these generative AI tools. When it comes to learning experiences, there are just so many things that can be done. For example, universities can set up, some universities are doing this, can set up policies for students using, intentional policies for students using generative AIs for their learning, academics using generative AIs for their teaching as well. And so how to harness them to better improve student learning. Because one of the things that you can do, as I've already said, is that you can democratize learning, where you allow for students to query their slides, for example. So students go home and their slides and they don't understand, or their handouts they don't understand. You can load it into a chatbot and then type in a few queries, and then it explains it better. You can keep changing the queries or the prompts until some explanation comes that makes sense or makes meaning to you. So that helps to improve the learning experience. And these things are very important for student learning. And in fact, the future is only bright. The chatbots are also going to get better. Generative AIs are going to get better at producing information. They'll become more accurate. They'll be able to better communicate. They're also going to be able to speak more languages, so we will be able to have scientific terms in tree, for example, using chatbots. And academics in Ghana are already working very hard at building language models in tree. And so if you have a chatbot, for example, that speaks tree, you can query it questions in tree about special relativity or business designs. And that is a really very exciting prospect, because we know that when you teach young people in their local languages, they understand whatever concepts they're understanding better. So the future is really amazing and really very bright for education and the prospects of education when it comes to these chatbots.
Amazing. The future is indeed very bright. I mean, I can't wait to see a chat box that will be generating tree for us.
Well, ChatGPT can, but again, because it hasn't been trained enough on these things, its tree is a bit, you ask it to say something in tree and then it's not exactly very good. But it can speak multiple languages. And one of the challenges about languages is translation. But you have these chatbots being able to do really very good translation. And then they can also help you to learn other languages as well. So like I was saying, the future is really very bright. Yeah. Yes. No, you can do that now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Can you discuss the ethical considerations when using social media platforms for e-learning, particularly when integrating them with generative AI tools?
So there are a number of ethical conundrums especially with generative AI tools. Generative AI tools have been trained on data that's available, readily available. In fact, the arts community is up in arms with generative AI because a lot of the content that exists that was used to train the generative AIs that create images belong to artists, and the artists feel like you take my intellectual property and use it to train your AI without any reference to me, without any financial recognition to me, and then now you have your technology and it is generating images and then it is making recognition available to you. So there's that concern about intellectual property and how it's being used. The other thing with generative AIs, the challenge with them is that the companies quickly discovered that their employees were uploading proprietary material into ChatGPT, for example. So you have a company like, let me use Google as an example. I'm not saying that happened, but like you have some very sensitive source code, and then the software engineers are looking for a shortcut. And again, this is why it's important that students understand that just uploading things like that is dangerous, because one day you might have some very brilliant idea and you upload it into one of these chatbots. Now you have no idea what the chatbot is using that information for, whom it is being sent to. Of course, they have all these privacy policies and things like that. But there was a time that ChatGPT had a problem and you could see other people's chats. And so that creates real problems when you have code or information that shouldn't be going out. So some of the ethical considerations are that you should be very careful about what you are putting on there, because if you're putting on into a chatbot something that should not be there, something that's proprietary, something that you are working on, you should realize that you are putting it out there and there's a chance that you might never get it back. The other ethical consideration with these things is the fact that they can allow for people to do very harmful things. It is possible to ask a chatbot to teach you how to make a bomb or to teach you how to write a virus or things like that. A lot of the chatbots tend to limit these kinds of things, but there are chatbots that can do this, and there are also chatbots that you can, with ChatGPT like this, you can use prompt engineering to circumvent the inherent limitations that prevent you from getting access to this. So these are some of the ethical considerations that come up to me off the top of my mind when it comes to these chatbots.
We just get output from the chat box. We also feed them input.
Yes, of course. In order to get an output, you have to feed an input. So you give a query. Now, for example, someone in a programming firm is writing code and they are stuck somewhere and they are not sure what the error is. So then they just copy and paste the code into ChatGPT and say, can you fix the code? And ChatGPT is able to do that for you. The problem is, if the code is proprietary, it's a company secret and nobody should have access to it. It's out there. So imagine that one day you have your tech company and you've employed a student who has spent his entire life copying and pasting into ChatGPT. And then you have your proprietary code. And so these are some of the problems. The student is just going to copy and paste into ChatGPT. And these are some of the issues that that I'm trying to raise. So we use it as an assistive tool, and we need to be aware that there are privacy concerns. With all chatbots, there are privacy concerns. Of course, it is possible to have your own chatbot. You can put a chatbot on a server and train it on your own information and use it in isolation. But those are not as good as the large language models that exist, because they require very huge processing power in order to be able to do the kind of outputs that they do for us. Yeah.
Doc, I feel like in as much as the chat is here to help, sounds like a dangerous tool.
Like any tool that exists, like fire, it makes really amazing food, but it will burn down your house. So you need to understand, and that is what we are doing when we are training students. That's what students are doing. We are learning how to be responsible adults in the future, responsible for the future of Ghana. And so you need to understand what a powerful tool it is, what an amazing tool it is, but you need to understand what the risks are. When it comes to the social media platforms, they are amazing tools, allow you to connect, but you need to understand that they can start a war. You can be cyberbullied and people commit suicide because of social media. You need to understand that you can end up studying some video that is completely false, but because you don't have the skill to know that it is false, you end up being deceived. And then you go to the exam and you don't know what it is you're doing. So you need to be aware of these things, and you need to understand that they are there, but they are tools, and you need to figure out how to harness them. Yeah.
I think we spoke about this during the inception of the program, but then I want you to throw more light on it. You know, how is this generative AI impacting society? Is it positively, both positively and negatively? I want you to throw more light on it.
So, yeah, like I said, they've been around for a while, but what happened in November last year was that OpenAI released ChatGPT to the open public, and like the entire world was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, anybody who tried to use it, and people are still discovering it, are just blown away about how amazing a tool it is. And so when you think about how much work it can do for you and how little work is required to get you to do what you need to do, that's amazing. But when you think about the implications, one of the biggest implications is the working world, because the jobs that are immediately under threat are, for example, secretarial jobs. Because you can have an AI tool that can transcribe, can do voice to text. So you put it in a meeting, and then it just transcribes everything. And then once you have it there, you can query it for the various action points for the meeting. And that's what a secretary would typically do. You can have it put together minutes of the meeting based on the the transcription. And that in itself means that lots of jobs are going to go. And it's not just that. You're talking about content creation. The generative AIs can do art. Generative AIs can do music. Generative AIs can do can do rap, you know. So like there are just so many jobs that are going to disappear. Currently in the US, writers are on strike. The movie and TV industry writers are on strike because one of their challenges is with generative AIs, because they want to have protection from generative AIs, and the Hollywood companies are interested in exploiting generative AIs, because if you no longer need to employ a human being and you have a generative AI to be writing your movies for you, I mean, that's a shortcut. So like there are just so many jobs that are at risk now. And so I always say that as students, we need to be thinking ahead, and we need to be aware and be preparing, for this future.
So looking at it from the negative side, we've analyzed the negative side a lot, but let's draw it down to the student level, and then draw it down to how it helps us with creativity and critical thinking. How effective is generative AI tools and social media?
So again, as I said, so when it comes to creative thinking, in order to be able to get information from generative AI, you need to know how to query it, and that requires some amount of creativity. So that's the first step. You need to be creative in order to use it. There are certain creative processes that it's going to limit, like the creative process of writing, because fewer and fewer people are going to be writing from scratch because it does a lot of work for you. But however, there are reactions to this. So some academic communities around the world are limiting. Some universities, for example, have banned the use of generative AIs on the university campus completely, because they feel that the training of writing is very important, So on the student level, what I'll say is that you need to know how to write as a student, because the process of writing is a process of critical thinking. But again, at the same time, you are going to be existing in a world where these tools are going to be the status quo. So you also need to know how to use them. So it's important to find a healthy balance. And that's why I keep saying It's an assistive tool and not a replacement tool. It's one that's supposed to assist your work. And if you are able to use it, there's research that shows that people who use these generative AIs become more productive at work, are more creative, because you can spend time on the creation and less time on the repetitive work that the generative AIs can do for you. So there is that. But if you are relying on it solely, you are not really creating, you're not doing anything new, you're just doing repetitive work. And so then you won't matter in a few years in the working world.
Okay, just to chip this in, you see, there are these movies that showcase AI taking over the world and killing human beings and all that. So these kind of movies have traumatized people into using AI. So what advice will you give to those who feel like they don't have to use AI because one day in the future, AI will just take over the world and start killing human beings?
Well, what I'll say is that you're always using AI. If you're using a smartphone, you're using an AI. If you're using Gmail, you're using an AI, because there's an AI in Gmail that is predicting your next word, you know. So you're already using it whether you like it or not. It is the status quo. So if you think that you are sealing yourself from using it, you are going to be you will be living in a world where you won't be using any technology. Every smart device now is deploying some kind of AI. Your smartphone cameras are deploying some kind of AI. Your laptops are deploying some kind of AI. Your smartphones, the apps on it are all deployed. Everybody is using it now. So it's impossible to say that you are not using it. You are using it. The thing is that you are using it unconsciously. Now, if there's a way that you can use it to make yourself more productive, why not? And that's my question. That's my what do you call it? Rhetorical question. Why not? But again, make yourself productive in a way that is creative and not destructive towards your creativity. So if you find out that you are losing some form of your creativity, you need to take a step back and say, okay, look, what am I doing wrong? Am I using these tools to replace the work that I should actually be doing, the learning that I should be doing, or I am relying on it to do the work that I should be doing?
So let me just share this experience. Well, there was this time that it was when the Chat GPT came very popular. Well, I actually I didn't expect our lecturer to be so familiar with it. So he gave us this assignment, and then I actually felt, oh, this old man, what will he be doing with Chat GPT? So I went to throw the questions there, expected the feedback. When I got the feedback, submitted the assignment, and as a normal student, I didn't even bother to paraphrase it in any way. At the time, we didn't even know much about paraphrasing tools, so I just presented it the same way. He returned it back to me the same way. Redo. We took a different style. Then he kept pushing it back to us. Let us know that we are using an AI for it.
Because as I have said, it is academic fraud. And so you do not want to be participating in that. You do not submit work that is not yours as if it is yours. And so what your lecturer was trying to teach you was that you should learn to do the work yourself. And that's what's important. That's what all students should know. Do the work yourself. I think that students spend too much energy and time trying to figure out how they can find shortcuts so that they never have to do the hard work. But there's no alternative to hard work. When you do the hard work, you know, you learn, you can develop, you can create, you can inspire, you can, you know, and that's what we are supposed to be doing. We, as students, you are the future of this country. You are the future of the world. And if you don't give yourselves to give the world the tools to give the world a good future during your learning experience, when you are to implement a future for the world, there will be problems. So you need to remember that.
Amazing. For students who may be interested in a career that combines AI with social media, what advice would you give to them?
The same advice I gave earlier on, start. Like, you know, I think right now there are several spaces online that you can get to learn about what opportunities are out there. So I'll say just start. Start to play about with the generative AIs. If you have a social media account, begin to generate content. You can use the tools as assistive tools to generate content to generate content online. If you want to get into building AI tools, you probably would need to be in either mathematics or computer science or physics. Um, if you're doing any one of these courses, you are already on the right path. But it's not too late if you're not. There are e-learning courses available online, and so you can get onto them. I know KNS's e-learning will be running some short courses for students on generative AIs. So when you see the courses advertised, get on board, register for these courses, participate in them, position yourselves so that if you are interested in them, position yourself so that you when the tools are made available, you use them, you learn them, and once you learn them, you apply them. And that's the way forward.
So we are about to draw the curtains to this. But Doc, I would like to know, as an expert in this, I know you have utilized a lot of time studying various AIs. But as an expert in this, I would like to know your take, your vision on AI in the near future, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, even if possible, in the next 20 years. Your vision, your thoughts on how AI will take over the world, both in the education sector and the working sector.
Okay. So I think I've already made a few points, but let me just rehash them. First, I will not say I'm an expert. I'm an enthusiast. There's a difference between those two. But yes, everybody, even the leading experts of AI technologies in the world have been writing warning letters after warning letters saying that we need to have policies in place, because policies guide the way we use these AI technologies. We need to have policies in place so that we can protect the world. We need to have policies in place so that people don't generate AIs that are harmful to us. Because a lot of times the AI technologies that are being developed, we don't fully understand them or understand how they work. When I say we, I'm talking about the people who build them. They struggle to fully understand how these generative AIs are behaving or how they are working. And then also, another challenge that they have is that they tend to be trained on skewed data. So a lot of the data that they have will be data that belongs to either to Western societies, and so these Western societies are very skewed in a certain way. So if you train an AI on Western data and you bring it to Ghana, it's not going to respond properly because the Ghanaian dynamic is very, very, very different. But what's happening is that they are being applied blanket across board, and it's creating all kinds of problems. So there has to be policy, there has to be policy engagement, there have to be investment in experts so that we have more local experts who are engaging in AI and developing AI. KNST is taking a lead in that with the real in the engineering department, the real projects in the engineering department, which is the responsible AI laboratories. But there has to be more investment in these things, because the future is that we're still trying to figure it out. We are not very sure, but it's such a powerful tool that even the best of the experts are concerned that we may not use it wisely as humanity. And of course, we are looking at how we have exploited new technologies and we have not been very, very good custodians of them. But however, I must say that there are lots of applications that are exciting and promising when it comes to AIs, because you're talking about disease diagnostics, you're talking about automated, more automation. So you're talking about automated vehicles and things like that. There's just so many opportunities out there. Now, the frightening thing for many people, or the concerning thing for many people, is what it means for the future of work and the future of labor, because a lot of jobs are going to disappear. But it doesn't mean that it's also not going to create new jobs. There will be new job opportunities. But again, there has to be some preparation for that future, and that's where students need to be aware, because you are being educated now for a future that you have no idea. Both the educators and the students themselves have no idea of what the future is going to look like. So we need to have these ideas and these conversations about how that future is going to look like. But at the end of the day, as I'm saying, what the future is going to look like is that these AI tools are going to be more present in our lives, more obviously present in our lives. They are going to be available to make work easier. They are going to be available to make learning easier. but at the end of the day, they're also going to be available to probably undermine things or change the way that things seem normal to us for now. So, yeah, they are going to become more. They are going to become more present in exciting ways, but also probably also in scary ways as well. Yeah.
Okay, so Doc, do you think there are any specific AI tools that work really well with social media platforms for e-learning?
Yes, I mean there are several of them. There's perplexity.ai. Okay, so there are several of them. Let me start this way. You have free and paid. Okay, and I know for students usually they wouldn't want to pay for some of these tools. Yes, so a tool like perplexity.ai is free, but then there's a limitation as to how much you can do with it. But Perplexity allows you to. What Perplexity does is that if you use it to generate a prompt, it will cite sources for you. It will also help you find research articles. You have ChatGPT, which everybody knows. You have Google's Bard. You have Bing's Copilot. You have Snap's AI, and all of these are tools that you can combine with social media to give you more personalized learning experience, especially with the e-learning experience. So like, because with the e-learning experience where you have a video that you are watching or yes text that you are reading, you can combine the text with the various generative AIs that you are using to enhance your learning experience. Like as I've said, one of the things that it allows you to do is to be able to query the text that you are learning, ask targeted questions that you don't understand, and get a response. And if you get a response and you're not quite getting it, you can keep going back and forth until you get a framework that you can really understand. You can even ask it to generate questions on the text so that you can have practice tests on your own. I mean, the limitations are endless when it comes to the kind of learning experience you can have with these generative AIs.
I'm not sure. Do we have any more questions? I don't have any more questions. Everything has been very nice and insightful, but I'd ask my co-host if there are any more questions.
Any
If there are also
questions?
questions from the audience,
Audience,
that
we'd
we
like
can.
to take questions from the audience. Dear, I would like to also remind you that we can actually send our questions online.
The audience.
Okay, so yes.
So if there are no more questions from the audience or from any one of us, we'll ask Dr. Bertrum if he has any last words for us.
Well, my final words would be that the future is bright, it's exciting. The prospects are really, really very exciting for learning and for students learning, especially with e-learning. So get on the bandwagon, be more engaging with your learning experience, take control, take charge of your learning, be responsible for your learning. You have so much more available to you now than was available 2 years ago. And so explore. That's what you're supposed to do as a student. Explore this brand new fascinating world. Combine the tools in fascinating new ways. Share with your colleagues what you are learning, what you are discovering, and together build something new. Build new engaging platforms. And of course, we here as academics your lecturers are available to help you. And at any point in time you have any issues, reach out to us. Collaborate with e-learning, KNSC's e-learning. Reach out to us. We are there. We are willing to support your learning. We are willing to push your learning experiences. So so those will be my final words.
Yes, amazing. So it's been a lovely session.
Very lovely.
But before we go, personally, I have learned that we should work hard. We shouldn't be lazy. We should be mindful of academic fraud, also known as plagiarism. We should be very mindful of that. And yeah.
Actually, to add to that, up until today, I never knew AI could give us misleading information, damaging info, and even skewed information. I didn't know. I always thought that all that came from AI was always true, up until today. I didn't know. This is what I've also been able to learn. It's been a great encounter sharing your little knowledge on generative AI with us.
So what stood out for me was, the fact that if we replace AI with our work, currently, in the next future, AI will replace us. So we should, use it as an assistive tool, not a replacive one.
And for those who are scared of using AIs, we have learned today that in our everyday life, we are using AI without knowing or even knowing it. Our smartphones and gadgets around us are all adopting AI. So even in as much as some of us are scared of using AIs, we should still get used to them, because one day in the future, they might take your job. So just get abreast with AIs, know how they are used, and use them to help yourself. Yes, that's what I took from today.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Dr. Achana Brichu. Thank you so much to our dear listeners. It's been an amazing podcast session. But before we go, the Dean would like to make a presentation for the winners of the Fast Type Path. Yes.
I stood there and watched them enjoy themselves.
No. So yes, it's amazing. Wow.
Amazing.
Not only in Ghana, the whole world. And let's remember that
Oh yes. Oh
The
yes.
best.
Oh
the
yes.
best.
Oh,
Underline
yeah.
the best.
Yeah. It's the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
so we'd like to invite
The Dean, yeah.
let's invite the Dean.
The presentation.
our very own father.
Professor Richard Bwama.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Please.
Oh, let me join you here.
Yes, be nice.
Okay. Oh, sit. Right. Really, all in all, I think it's been a very educative, a very exciting and impactful sessions that we've had all through the event. And we are so grateful to our resource persons having come all the way down here to KN University of Boise campus. Being the maiden session, I think it has gone a long way to really help our students here, and it has exposed them to a lot of the new packages. Because hitherto, we were so much used to only the Zoom. But today, I'm sure you've got word about the Slack. You got word about, a whole lot of different other packages. And if you forget anything at all about the Mentee challenge, I'm sure you all got involved. Except that none of you here got the prize. You got sanitizer?
I got toffees. I got 3 toffees.
You got 3 toffees. Okay, that was good. You also got a pen. Oh, right. So on behalf of management, administrative staff, and all the student body on KNUST Obuasi campus, we say a big thank you to the e-learning team for having been here all through the day, spending valuable time with us, educating us, and taking us through these wonderful sessions. We really, really, really appreciate what you've done for us. We hope this will not be the last, isn't it? I'm sure you do agree with me. Exactly. So Obuasi campus will be expecting more from our partners on the main campus, and they should not forget us. I'm sure you all agree with me on that. Good. So we are so grateful to the chairman, and all the members, those that came, those that were on the team, even those bathroom staff, isn't it? Because there were some also working on the gadgets for us, and they made everything possible for us. And we've had a wonderful session all through. So once again, we thank you all. I have a package in my hand, a small token for the one that won the competition for the best hands on a keyboard. So maybe if you will permit me, I'll call on that gentleman. What's his name? Who won the best hands on the keyboard? The fastest hands on the keyboard? Carl Joshua. Oh, okay. Let me invite the ladies here to join me to make this presentation to Carl. Please hold this for me. Please, and that also. So now, Maureen, the fastest hands on the keyboard represents this gift. That's a token. Please hold it. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So once again, thank you all. Thank you all.
Own Dean. Thank you very much, Professor Boama. So also soon we come to the end of our live podcast. This was brought to you live from KNUST Obuasi campus. Thank you very much for listening to us. Have a wonderful day.